This is Shaun with the Atlanta Tennis Podcast, powered by Go Tennis. Check out our calendar of Metro Atlanta tennis events at letsgotennis.com. This is Tennis Fitness with Nathan Martin. Nathan and his wife have been at the forefront of tennis fitness innovation for the past 20 years. They have worked with some household names like Leighton Hewitt, Sam Stosur, and Martina Navratilova. Today, we are talking specifically about playing better in our matches. Maybe a better warm-up, better match intensity, and to train toward the player you want to be rather than the player you are today. Now, Nathan, this takes me to a personal rule. I've got a family rule that we call rule number 4, which is
go for it.
Compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today. So it is, are you getting better, even if it's incremental? Some would call it just moving the needle a little bit. Is that what we're talking about here, of actually just getting better bit by bit? Is that how we get to play better in matches? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, it is. Well, obviously, having a goal is important, having something to shoot and aim towards. And then it's just putting a plan in place, right, to help you get there. If we're doing that and the plan's effective, we're gonna reach the goal or get pretty close to it. Yeah, so I like point number 4. You're right. You got it sorted out.
I'd say it's a favorite rule, but a lot of them are chosen for those purposes that we really like it. But in this case, playing better in matches. I've had conversations with sports psychologists, with other sports coaches in different sports completely, where the practice is different from the match. Is that what we're talking about? Or are you just talking about playing better in matches in general? Are we talking from practice court to the match court, right?
Well, look at it like this. So where do you think a bulk of players spend their time in their tennis journey? Is it in match play or is it practice?
Definitely practice.
Okay, so what we do in practice is going to have a massive influence over how we play our matches. So what happens is players generally will turn up to something that they're doing a lot of. Most players are playing maybe 3 times, maybe more a week. It can get a bit monotonous, same people, same coach, etc. So what's really important to do in those moments, it's to continue to have small goals, small targets, go through a process that you know is going to get what you be calling, get you into a heightened state. So you want to be physically and mentally switched on and engaged. You want to, like you mentioned with your family rule point 4, you want to try to be better than you were last day or last week. And you want to aim towards being a little bit better each time. And preparing your body and preparing your mind is super important to help make that happen. Because how you practice, and I know that, most people would have heard this before, it's no secret, but a lot of people do not do it effectively enough. How you practice is going to have more of an impact on how you play than anything else. So if you're not practicing at the right intensity, you're not preparing enough for your practices, that's going to flow over into how you play and perform in matches.
We used to do a thing where we didn't care if the ball was out. You still had to go run it down and hit the next shot. And it was as much fitness on the tennis court as it was the tennis. But it was just, the other guy hit it out and I'm going to call it out, but I'm still going to run over there and hit a winner just for fun, just for practice. It was that intensity that we cared about. Yeah. Because in a match, maybe that ball is in and I do need to go run it down.
Yeah, exactly. That's definitely a good methodology and something that's, everyone should be trying to do. Chase everything down. That's another thing that you hear a lot of coaches will say. Doesn't matter if you think you're going to get to it, because if you don't start trying to get to those balls, then you're never going to get to them, right? So you have to start somewhere. There's a couple of key things that people need to get right. A lot of it starts with the warm-up. So in your warm-up, you don't just want to get yourself to a state where you're feeling like it's mundane and I've just got to get it done. You want to consider this part of your practice session or part of your match. And the better you can get at doing that, the more effective your practice is going to be, the more you're going to get out of it. And also the same with your matches. So trying to look to build, we talk about warming up when we look at a principle called ramping. So we want to start off down here and we want to build the intensity up. So by the time you step onto the practice court or you step on to the match court, you feel like you're in a heightened state. You feel like mentally I'm switched on, physically everything's engaged, I'm ready to go, almost like you're sweating and you're ready to go from that first ball. If you're not doing that, then you're already sort of playing catch up. So that's step one, getting that warm up right.
Yeah, I've said that many times to people with zero evidence, but I was pretty sure I was right. Where I said, you've got to, if you're going to say you're warmed up, we can't go out and hit for 5 minutes and say, all right, let's go. You're not
Yeah.
actually warmed up. You're going to be down a set and a break before you know it. But
Yeah.
then again, probably in a league play, the other guy is
Mm.
all that warmed up either.
Mm.
But what I
So that's how you
picture,
get the advantage. That's how you get the advantage over people like that. And I tell particularly young players this all the time. So a way you can, people who are watching this can explain it and to a player if they're a coach, or if you can understand it yourself, a good way to explain it is if you feel like when you finished your warm up, if you could jump into a match, okay, into the second set, into an important point, would you be able to play that point effectively enough? That's when you know you've warmed up well enough.
yeah, I've always said you got to be sweating before
Yeah.
you walk, as you walk on after your warm up. It isn't just hitting a few balls, hitting a few volleys. But what does that look like? I like what they're doing now on Tennis Channel. I don't see it as much on ESPN, but on Tennis Channel, they show us the
Yeah.
warm up spaces. And especially when it rains, you see them in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
They're on the bike and they're doing the little hand toss with the
Yeah.
balls.
Yeah.
I like that. I think it's good for the amateur player as well to
Mm.
realize
Mm.
don't show up at 8:57 for your 9 o'clock match. Show up half an hour, take it a little more seriously. Give yourself a
Yeah.
chance to one, not get injured, because that's,
Mm.
I would
Mm.
guess, a lot of the warm up is, but two, to
Mm.
really be ready to get going.
Yeah. I'll take you through really quickly, like how a workout warm up should sort of play out. So you want to raise your body temperature, your core body temperature. That's priority number one. That's at the bottom of the ramp. Okay, so you do that by running around the court, adding in some multi-directional movement. It's like a moderate intensity. You want to do this for 3 to 5 minutes. Then we want to go into some skipping, which starts to work on our coordination. So it starts to stimulate our nervous system, upper body, lower body. And we want to start to build the intensity up there. So we want to do that for 1 to 2 minutes, adding in lots of different variations, single leg jumps, double leg jumps, running on the spot, jumping side to side. Okay, then we want to flow into then more mobility. So we've raised the core temperature, we've switched on the nervous system, we want to mobilize the joints now. So we go through a range of mobility exercises, which we've talked about before. It's more like dynamic stretching. We want to make these specific for tennis, adding lots of rotation patterns, opening up the hips, opening up the ankle joints, all those sorts of things. And then we start to get a little bit more specific. So then we can go into some, some ball tosses, some fast feet, some shadowing with the rackets, with your racket. So that's how I encourage people to warm up. Definitely the shadowing for me is extremely important because it's super specific. You can start to visualize what you're about to do. And I generally say to people, okay, you want to go through 3 sets of 10 shots. We want to start the first set of 10 at 70%, moving around the court like you're playing. I always tell people, imagine you're playing Rafa Nadal and it's a big point. He's going to be moving you around the court. So you're chasing everything. You're trying to push yourself. And then the second set of 10 shots, you go up to 90%. The third set, you're at 100%, which means you're chasing and moving at maximum speed. And don't be afraid to feel like you're going to really get a good blowout, because that's what we want to do. By the time someone's got to that point, generally, I mean, if I'm working with a top junior, I normally take them through this process. It's about 15 to 20 minutes. But for an amateur player, you probably want to allow about 10 to 12 minutes to get through that process. And during that time, you're also thinking about, okay, I'm here. I'm generally, you're paying for a squad or for a coach, or you're at a tournament. Okay, this is important to me. What am I focusing on? Why am I here? What's important to me? If you've got any what I call self-talk practices or any mantras, that's when you're going through those in your head. You're starting to ramp up your mindset as well. And then boom, you walk on court, you're ready to go.
Bring in that mental training in the mental space as well. I remember we didn't have this specific information in the same way when I was playing in the juniors, but there were a lot of jump ropes out there. Is that still something that everybody does?
Jump rope, skipping. We call it skipping in Australia, jump rope in the good old US, but it's so important. Really is
When
so
you said
important.
skipping, that is what you're talking about is
Yes,
from
yes, the
okay.
jump rope. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So 1 to 2 minutes of jump rope. Yep.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. And then so now I'm warmed up, and there's a difference between going into my tennis match for $1 million, which most of us aren't doing. So it's
Yeah.
fun. The whole point is fun. Yeah,
Mm.
I want to win. Yeah, I want to
Mm.
impress my friends and make everybody happy with me and hope my wife is proud, all those things. But really what's important, you're out there to have a good time, but
Yeah.
also, are you out there to be better? Are you going to learn something? Or am I going to learn
Mm.
something? Am I going to
Mm.
practice maybe something I've been working on? Or is it so important that I'm not practicing at all? I'm just trying to figure out how to win.
Yeah. Well, a couple of things. When you're playing a match, you don't really want to focus on your technique. Okay. I think a lot of people get stuck on when they're playing matches, they focus too much on the technique. That's what you do in practice. When you compete, you're competing, you're focusing on what's in front of you, the arena, the battle. That's what you should be focused on. You don't want to be, oh, my forehand's I'm not doing it exactly how I should. That should be done in practice. So you should go into the match always with some kind of a plan. Does a couple of things, and I generally encourage people to focus on a couple of key areas. One would be physically. Okay, what's my physical plan for this match? What do I want to focus on? It could be like my preparation steps. It could be transitioning from shot to shot. Whatever it is, it could be just trying to keep my intensity up high. But you have a plan physically, you have a plan strategically. So what patterns of play, point play do I want to stick to? What's my coach been working on? And then third of all, it's like something that's mental. Okay, it could be I need to focus more at this point in the match, or I need to stay, more positive with myself. So you have working in those three areas, and you've got a bit of a plan for yourself. Okay, and you know that this plan's been strategically put in place. What it does is it helps to then distract you from negativity, and it helps to keep you focused on what's important. So if you focus generally on those three things, and not just those three things, but those three things are at the forefront of your thinking, then all of a sudden you go, focus on this, focus on that. Am I doing this? Am I doing this? Am I doing this? Yes, 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 yes. Then the outcome's the outcome. You're going to get progress regardless. Yeah, so that's what we should focus on. The progress in those areas is more important than the result, because the results will come if we get better in those three areas.
Okay, maybe this is relevant, maybe it's not. It made me think of when I was learning to meditate. And the first time I did it was just, can I think about nothing for however long it was? And it was 12 seconds or some minuscule amount of time. Then, okay, next time, can I think 13 seconds? Can I do it for a minute? Can I do it for 2 minutes? But what I realized personally is I needed something to think about, keep out the other things. So the idea of keeping my mind blank seemed impossible. So what I did is I filled it with nothing. And there was actually a space that was taken up with nothing, whether I was
like a black hole.
Yeah. That's a good way to look at it. But it was taking up space was the nothingness. So nothing else could come in. And it made me think of that when you said, I'm thinking of my strategy. I'm focusing on the physicality. I'm actively thinking of the things rather than is my elbow in the right place on my forehand. Is that
that's correct. Yep, 100%. So it comes back to, I think where a lot of people get let down with match plays, like we mentioned, the warm-up's not there, so they're not getting themselves in a physical and mental heightened state. They don't have a plan. They're not sort of focusing on anything in particular. And a lot of this comes back to the onus, has to be, in my opinion, comes back to if they've got a coach. I think a lot of coaches sort of are focusing more on just playing and hitting and, tweaking the technique a little bit. But ultimately, most people are playing because they want to improve and they want to win. They want to play better in matches. So it's good to be able to hit balls and focus on technique. But the priority for most people is, hey, I need to transition this into playing better. And so I think where there's a gap for a lot of people is not having that plan in place that goes from the practice court into match play. So, practice should really be orientated around how's this going to help me play better in a match. And then when you turn up to the match, it goes, well, this is what I've been working on to help me play better. I need to focus on it in my match. Once I've mastered that or got better at that, I move on to the next thing. And that's how we get progress. It's plain and simple. And I encourage a lot of coaches to do this because I don't think it happens enough, and people just go into matches a bit blind, and they just go to what they've always done, what they think has always worked, but then they always get the same result.
Yeah. And that makes me think of something you and I have discussed, which is the growth mindset. Is that something similar
Yes.
to what that is what you're describing is a growth mindset,
Yeah.
which is, am I better? Am I improving during the process? Playing a
Yes.
match is going to help me get better, even
Mm.
if I don't win this match. I'm not so extrinsically focused on the concept of winning the match. I am
Mm.
really here to get better in that mindset. But it made me think of the amateur player, where we look at the professional players and they go in with a strategy. If I've got to go beat Rafa, I'm going to have my strategy. First of all, probably not going to happen, but I gotta think positively here. So I
See
got to
it.
go
I
in
like
with a
it.
strategy because I know what Rafa is capable of. I think a
Mm-hmm.
majority of the amateur players are showing up to a tennis match with no concept of who they're playing. So
Yeah.
they're having to come up with a strategy without a coach, and maybe with their forehand not working all that well, and probably with a poor warm up. So
Yeah.
wrap it up for me. If we can get that amateur player or that high level junior to say, okay, I don't know this kid, or I don't know this
Yeah.
mixed doubles pair that I'm playing. I'm going to get myself warmed up. I'm going to get myself mentally focused, but we're really going to have to find the strategy a few games in, right?
100%. 100%. So look, how do you win a war, right? You've got to be strategic. You can't just keep thinking, well, this is going to work, this is going to work. So it's a matter of trying to analyze in the warm-up, in the first couple of games, if you've never seen the person before, it's trying to work out what their strengths and weaknesses are. And then you should know what yours are, and then you start to attack the weakness. Sometimes it's trying to play with a bit of rhythm to see how they go, try to get more balls in the court. Sometimes you're just trying to test them out in different ways. It's very important to do that. It's not another key tip is a lot of people focus on themselves a lot in a match, and they get so uptight and they get quite negative with themselves. So a big tip is, in order to, once again, to deflect that or to distract yourself from doing that, it's to focus on your opponent, and it's to break down their weaknesses and to focus on the match, what's going on, what can I do better? Yeah, how am I going to win this match? And that gives you a mindset of, a competing mindset where you're like this person should beat me, but I'm just going to wear them down because I know I'm a lot fitter than them. I'm just going to get more balls in. I'm going to let them know each point I'm ready to go. It doesn't have to be technical. It's just a matter of having that mindset of, you're like, I'm going to compete and I'm going to work this out. I'm going to find a way. And once you can do that, that's how you self-empower yourself. Each time you walk on court, you go in there with a mindset, which is a growth mindset, that I'm going to try and work this match out. And you get good at it. It's a skill. And you don't get skill acquisition, so skill doesn't get better if we don't practice it and we don't hone in on it.
Yeah, I remember back in the day, we would just take the first four games for what they were. You play, whether it's a
Mm,
singles match or a doubles match, the first four games, just play what you know how to do, and then pay attention to what your opponent's doing. So if I'm going to hit, you know what, I'm just going cross court in the beginning. I'm going to do my thing, first four games,
mm,
see what happens. Then I can evaluate. Then I've got a block of evidence that says, okay, here's what I now know about you as my opponent. And again, assuming I've warmed up well, assuming all the things that
yeah,
I'm taking your advice and saying, hey, I got to get myself ready. I'm also here with intrinsic motivation to get better
yeah,
while I do it. But you know what? I still want to win. So
yeah,
I still need to learn as much about you as I can to win this
yes.
match. And that isn't going to happen if I'm worried about myself.
Mm. I think at the core of it, it comes down to match play, comes down to what's driving someone. If they're driven to win and it's about results, they're going to be more geared around trying to work things out. They should be warming up effectively. If that's their goal, it's to progress, improve their ranking or get into bigger tournaments, whatever the case. If their goal's purely just enjoyment and they're not so focused on the result, they're probably not going to be the people that are going to have an extremely thorough warm up and be super worried about what their opponent does and how they can break them down. So, but if you are someone that's, you want to keep improving and you've got that growth mindset, then, after watching this, you've got to get your warm up sorted out. You've got to go into it with a plan, and you've got to play with intensity, and you've got to try to work out, hey, how am I going to win this battle? You can do those areas and focus on them, you're going to get the best outcome 100%.
There we go. Well put. I think we're done. Nathan, thank you so much. Tennis Fitness.
Thanks, guys. Good to see you.
We'll see you next time.
Let's go tennis.
Thank you, sir.